Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With the Season 4 Reloaded update, we obviously saw a lot of weapon tuning and a lot of weapon changes between Warzone and Modern Warfare 2, and this is the first time in some time that Modern Warfare 2 Multiplayer has actually seen some significant meta updates. There was actually a lot of specific patch notes meant for multiplayer, and so today, while we're still in the background trying to do some testing and figure out what exactly ended up changing with the Warzone meta because they were so ambiguous in their patch notes for no reason, I wanted to go ahead and break down the new Modern Warfare 2 meta updates, again, specifically just for multiplayer with Warzone changes to come in the next few days. But it's been a bit since we've actually looked at this list, just because last time we updated weapons when we got the Razorback and the ISO, they basically didn't change the MW2 meta. Before that, it hardly shifted as well. So first time on this list in some time. And obviously with the TTK being so fast in multiplayer, we have so many guns that are honestly just really good to use, which is good. So while, you know, average, you might say that's the mean or the middle of where things are supposed to be, it's really more so below average than anything else. But first things first, we've got the new MX Guardian to rank, and this is a pretty obvious choice. If you're in the close range with this thing, it's just nuts. The spam ability, it just erases players. If you're within like the first 5, 6, 7 meters, depending on what fire mode you have it in, the thing is ridiculously good, and I think we all sort of saw that coming. But now off to the side, I've got my handy dandy list of all the weapon changes that occurred for Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer here. And like I said, there's a surprising amount, and this list is going to be changed up some. So initially here, the ISO 45, they nerfed the close range damage, they nerfed the hip fire spread, and they nerfed the headshot damage as well. Now, I still think the ISO 45 is a very good sub, but just from using it yesterday a little bit, it is clearly much more in line with the MX9, the MP5, the MP7, the P90, so on and so forth, significantly more so than it was pre-update for sure. Now, the Vaznev is kind of the same deal. They ended up nerfing its close to mid-range damage distance, and the thing with the Vaznev is its damage ranges, its drop-offs were already very harsh, and again, I just feel like this balances out the SMG category a ton. Really, I don't feel like there is that clear number one choice. If you want to use the ISO right now, great. MP5, solid. P90, solid. Fennec can probably drop down some into competitive here because it's not really all that crazy anymore, but still, like the SMG category, it's really competitive right now. It's very diverse, and you love to see that. Another weapon that's been very dominant throughout its time in multiplayer got an ADS nerf and a headshot nerf, which to me is something that again brings it back down some more in line with some other rifles here. Even though it's still going to have a very fast TTK, if you are able to land those upper body shots, its reward is not nearly as high now. It's not as high risk, high reward as before. Now it's higher risk because the control's a little bit worse here, and the movement in the ADS speed's a little bit worse here, and the reward is a little bit lower. So still strong, but definitely not something that is deemed the most effective tactic in any given gunfight, right? TAC 56 also ended up catching a headshot nerf, and kind of the same treatment here. This is one that basically they were just waiting on the CDL to end so they could nerf this in the Vaznev, right? The headshot multiplier on the TAC was something that really kept it in the overall competitive conversation with other rifles. We're talking the M4 specifically, like over range. You could even, you know, throw in some other ones here and there. But now that that's nerfed some, it's definitely going to be less effective than before. Not much, but something that will be noticeable, and I feel like that M4 is probably gonna be a little bit more effective now because of that. This is one that I won't lie, I'm a little bit bummed about. They finally nerfed the 74U. This is, I think, like maybe the second or third nerf ever for the 74U. It was so good for so long, and I still think it's honestly ridiculously good as well, but they did nerf the hip fire spread and the headshot damage just like the other rifles. Once more, I think this brings it down just ever so slightly. That said, the new barrel does allow this to be a bit more competitive still, but the main reason I'm dropping this out of absolute meta is because the Razorback exists. The Razorback's just a better version of the 74U, and same deal with the Chimera. It's kind of the 2-in-1 option of these. You combine the 74U and you combine the Chimera and you get the Razorback. So no sense in them all being in the same category when one solution clearly is the go-to. Also, as I'm looking at top meta now, I missed this as we glanced through it initially, but yeah, Cronin Squall, not really up there anymore. So long overdue nerf there. But yeah, Razorback, as I was saying, definitely the go-to of like the aggressive rifles for sure. And by the way, as we're breaking down all the meta changes here today, quick reminder, if you guys are new to the channel, every day I got you covered with all things going on, news, updates, loadouts, tips, you name it, it's right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. We'll of course be breaking down the Warzone meta and then all the best class setups and best loadouts for multiplayer and Warzone respectively in the coming days. As I mentioned earlier, really just want to make sure we have all the actual correct data for Warzone because they were so vague with how they talked about their patch notes and their different damage profiles and all that stuff. But if you guys want to stay up to date with that stuff, be sure to hit that sub button. And if you enjoy the video, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. Now, the KV broadside prior to this update probably needed to be in top tier at the minimum, and I'm going to say it's going to stay there now even post update. However, it's here for an even better reason. They ended up actually buffing the mid-range damage for it just in multiplayer. Not sure why we needed to do that, but it's there. But that said, it's not on the same level as the Guardian for what it's worth. Now, we also saw a lot of other updates to the other shotguns, but that said, I don't feel like any of them are going to be particularly crazy here in multiplayer outside of shipment 24/7 pretty much exclusively. But the Bryson 800 got a head, upper torso, and limb nerf, then also a mid-range damage nerf as well. So that one definitely gonna be staying in competitive. The Bryson 890 actually got an arm nerf, a lower torso nerf, but an ADS movement buff. Then the Expedite 12 got an ADS buff, hip fire buff, and then also a buff to the head and upper torso damage as well. So a couple of buffs, couple of nerfs to these various shotguns. Like I said, though, if you're not playing shipment 24/7, they're really not all that practical in the grand scheme of things when you're comparing them to basically how the SMGs and even some rifles, the Razorback, perform right now in the close to mid-range. Now, the Tempest Torrent admittedly is something that probably could have been higher up on this list beforehand, again, just because part of this is out of date since we haven't looked at it in so long, but it actually caught some nerfs, which probably makes the competitive ranking for it a lot more appropriate now. ADS speed nerf, a close to mid-range damage nerf, which is really where it thrived, then also a neck multiplier nerf. So definitely something that's not going to be nearly as effective as it was before. Also, TAC V definitely needs to be jumped up into the more competitive category of top tier, ironically, moving out of competitive into top tier because it brings the power, it brings the damage. Another marksman here, the EBR got an ADS movement speed nerf and a strafe nerf. That's not really going to knock it out of top tier for me because this thing's like a 3-shot kill consistently. They didn't change the damage on it, they just changed some kind of obscure movement stuff with it, which really is not all that important. Now, the MK2, I won't lie, actually got a really fun buff. It got an ADS buff and a movement speed buff. So basically now it's just a better quick scoping machine. That said, I don't think it jumps up to top tier as much as I'd love for it to because it's such a fun weapon to use. Realistically, it's still one of the weaker marksman rifles, but if you're someone who avidly likes to play super aggressive with it because it's so good at aggressive like quick scoping and whatnot, it just got even better for that niche. And then lastly, the SAB 50 got a movement buff that pretty much just keeps it as is. Kind of surprised because this and the Lab are both still very, very good, or the LAB are both very, very good. Wasn't expecting them to get more buffs per se, but it is what it is. That's kind of how it shakes out. And like I said at the start of the video, because of how fast the TTK here is in multiplayer, you just have so many options to choose from, whether you want to play the close range and dominate with the Razorback or the Guardian or the SMGs with the MX9, the MP5, the ISO even. You got all that covered. Mid to long range with the M4. You got all the other rifles, the RAL, the RAP, the Sakin, all very good. The Recon, the Lockman 7.62 EBR. If you want to snipe, all of them are basically on the same level, I would say, for the most part. You got the quick scopes in there as well. You got so many different options, which is a benefit of having a fast TTK. The downside, though, is that you just have zero time to react ever, right? But that said, that's kind of how the MW2 multiplayer meta shakes out here. This is looking very different from what I can already tell the Warzone one is going to look like, though, once we have all the data on that. So stay tuned for that in the coming days. But this is what we got for multiplayer right now. We'll be breaking down the best setups for all these weapons here in the coming days as well. But that's going to wrap things up for this one. If you guys enjoyed, let me know by dropping a like on the video. And if you guys are new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all things going on in COD. But once more, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I will catch you guys later. Peace out.